Good evening and welcome to Questions of Faith. The notion of conversion from one faith to another is, for people with a strong conviction, not a common thought. It is when a lack of confidence in all the values and beliefs that form part of the faith one is brought up with, or which one has chosen, grows to a degree that undermines one's conviction, that people might feel it's a time to change or indeed give up. But is it as simple as that? Not always. There are situations when another faith calls to someone in a way that is so strong and incisive that change is necessary regardless of the consequences. Martyrs throughout history have made the ultimate sacrifice for the sake of their conversion. In a less dramatic way, people are also called away from their past beliefs to begin a new life under the guidance of a different faith. One such person is my guest this evening, Mahesh Shivnani. Good evening, Mahesh.
Good evening, Steve.
Nice to see you again.
Thank you for having me tonight.
Mahesh, just for general information, you're born a Hindu.
Yes.
But you've had family connections with Gibraltar.
Yes, correct. My father, late Devidas Shivnani, he actually worked in Gibraltar in the 60s under the Boxons company, under the Nagranis. And so actually my older brother was born in Gibraltar. And then my father was sent to Malaga, across the border, to start a branch office of the Boxons company. So actually he knows a lot of people over here, and many of them know me. They've seen me as a child, seen me grow up. So there are connections definitely with Gibraltar as a beginning of my dad's journey in Europe as a family.
So it's been a while since you been in Gib? Or?
Well, I used to come before all the time in business. I used to do a lot of import-export and selling a lot of souvenir items. And so I would come to Gibraltar once in a while. And of course, we always come to Gibraltar to buy all the Indian food stuff.
Oh, right.
You know, I would come once in a while and have some friends here from before as well.
As I said, you were born a Hindu, but you're now a Christian.
Yes, I was born in a typical Hindu family where we did all the rites, all the rituals. A normal Hindu family, just like Hindu families over here, you know, where you are normal people, you don't go into much trouble, and we try to keep an image towards society. And so I grew up in a normal Hindu family, and we did normal things.
And comfortable as well.
Yes, we were very well off. There was no need, you know, for me to look outside what I already had. I had everything, you know.
So what were these early stirrings that made you look towards Christianity?
Well, from an early stage, I always saw myself looking deeper into godly things than even my siblings. And my concern to finding out who God actually was, what this faith was all about. And it wasn't normal at that age. I remember as a child, I would participate in all the worship meetings we had in my house. And I would memorize all the songs, all the psalms, you know, in our language, in Sindhi. And I would even play the tablas, which is the Indian drums, as a child, you know, in the worship, you know, meetings. And I remember sitting with my grandfather, and in the morning early, many times with him in the shrine we had in the house with all the gods, and always asking him questions and finding out more. So there was always a calling towards really understanding who God was and what the afterlife was. It's not a normal question for a small child to dig into, but somehow or another, I was always drawn towards the idea of finding out the truth about God, you know, where we are, what we're doing.
A slight aside, was the fact that the idea that there was an image of multiple gods in that faith that seemed confusing? Was that a component of it?
Well, in the beginning it was normal, because you grow up being taught that all roads lead to Rome. Basically, all gods are the same. And so until a certain age, you basically believe that. But when you start digging deeper into that philosophy, I started to realize that something was wrong, because all these different gods had different ideas about what is right and what is wrong. For example, not eating meat, or do you eat meat? Or when do you eat meat? Or when do you fast? There's so many rules, so many things that were so contradictory within themselves. It did not make sense to say that all roads lead to Rome.
Is it a religion that allows for flexibility, to put it in a simple term? I mean, are there the gurus that have their own versions, if you like, of Hinduism?
Yes, of course. In the Hindu faith, there are many thousands of gods, and thousands of gurus and saints, and they differ quite a bit on everything they say. Okay, they can have any kind of rule about conduct and morality. The only thing they actually have in common is the idea of reincarnation,
right,
and the many thousands of lives. They even say it's thousands of lives, or 84 lives, or I don't know how many there are. And through some kind of magical formula of math, good deeds and bad deeds, you might one day reach nirvana.
I see.
You might one day reach to be one with God again. And so all this philosophy I studied from the youth, and that's a basic common ground for Hinduism.
Right. It's one of the oldest religions on the planet.
Well, I don't know if it is the oldest. I know that the scriptures are pretty old.
So what was it that made you look outside then?
Well, I think many different things in my life God brought into my life that influenced me towards seeking Jesus Christ as my God and Savior. And one of those things was when I was 9 years old, we shifted from a Spanish school to a British school in Torremolinos, where we grew up, Sunny View School. And there I was taken down a grade. From third grade I went to second grade. I was 9 years old, so 8 years old. And my best friend in second grade happened to be a missionary kid, a son of a missionary couple, as Mr. Sobi and Mrs. Jerry Malik, who are now in the United States. And there were missionaries here in Spain working, and their youngest son, Joel Malik, he became my best friend. And through him and through going to their house, she actually held a Good News Bible Club after school. And she would invite us all with cookies and milk, and we went only for that actually, but we got to learn stories about Abraham, about God, about God's love towards children. And all these things started putting a little seed inside of my heart about who this person of Christ was. I actually remember I was about maybe 12 years old, 13 years old. This friend of mine, Joel Malik, he gave me the gospel of Jesus Christ. He expressed to me who Christ was. He told me the story, what happened, that he came down to earth and he was crucified and he died. And I remember that very moment, I still remember it was during recess. I remember a real sadness went towards that person of Christ. So something started stirring my heart, and these questions I had about all these different gods and different philosophies, and just started stirring up my heart. So I had to find answers. And at the age of 14, my friend Joel was going to go study to a school for missionary kids in Germany.
Right.
A specific school in Germany made for all the missionaries in Europe who want to give their children an American education in English. So because it was so close to me, we were like brothers, God made such a way for me to end up as a Hindu in that boarding school in Germany.
Right.
And there I actually saw Christianity for the first time in its reality, because every single child there, from the age of 12 till 18, who were in high school, they were all Christians. They were all born-again Christians, not just white people, like I said. Before I thought, Jesus Christ was for the white people.
White person.
Yeah, so it wasn't for me.
Yeah.
But when I saw, that Christianity, what it actually was, the amount of love, acceptance, sacrifice, and all these basic truths of Christianity, what it actually meant, I wanted to be a part of it.
But that was a very impressionable age. I mean, you were saying 14, 15?
Yes.
How did you then, well, maybe perhaps at that time it was more difficult, but now looking back, how do you feel that it wasn't a sort of a brainwashing exercise that you went through at the time, as a youngster? We'll talk about your later life later, but at that time, don't you now think that it might have been sort of a pretty heavy PR exercise on a young, impressionable mind?
Definitely. That's one thing that makes total sense, because he was my best friend, and I wanted to be part of his lifestyle and his faith. My faith was not giving me the peace I needed inside. And so being in that school, I would clearly understand that I could be influenced by the environment and trying to fit in, and we all do that to a certain level where we are in society. So the first month being in Germany in that school, I actually wanted to become a Christian. I just knew this was the way for me, but I wanted to make sure I wasn't being brainwashed, like you just said. It wasn't the influence of society in that moment. It was actually a decision. So I knew the truth about Jesus Christ. I had read it and understood about hell and heaven and salvation through Christ only. So I understood all that stuff. At that moment, Hinduism started losing its value in my life as a way of salvation, as a way of meeting God. But I wanted to make sure I wasn't brainwashed. And at the same time, there were two things that stopped me from becoming a Christian at that moment. One was the idea that I might be influenced, okay, and I wanted to have all the answers before I could jump into this new faith.
We're still trying.
Yeah, that's a common thing. You want to have all the answers before you take this leap of faith, because it meant a lot for me to take the step. And second of all, I was very afraid of the reaction my father would have against me.
Right.
Because one time I remember sitting down with him in the car at 11 o'clock at night in Spain, and I mentioned to him, I kind of hinted towards the idea that I was looking into Christianity. And when I mentioned about hell and heaven and, separation from God, and that there is no reincarnation and all these things, he got very angry. And this is the first time actually I ever saw my dad get angry and express it in such a physical way. So I was shocked, and I kept it to myself. So for 3 years, I battled. What should I do, and when should I do it, and if I'm doing the right thing or not?
Mahesh, we'll take a short break now, and we'll carry on and pick up the story from that moment in a few moments.